Hi Boulder Books. My name is Anders Morley, and I want to thank Boulder Books for giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit about my book, which came out in the fall 2020, September of 2020. It's called This Land of Snow, A Journey Across the North in Winter, and it was released by Mountaineers Books in Seattle. Um, this Land of Snow. So the title is important. It's really the story of a place and the story of a season, winter, obviously, given the title. And that place is northwestern Canada, um, between far northwestern British Columbia, Prince Rupert, which is the last town going northward on the British Columbia coast before you come to the Alaska Panhandle, and then spanning eastward from there to northern Manitoba. And it's the story of a journey I made on skis over the course of a winter, the winter of 2012 and 13, 4 months, across that area. And it's a description of the places that I came to, the people I met, and of winter itself. Um, it's also the story of um, usually people laugh at me when I say a midlife crisis because I was 34, 33, and 34 at the time of the journey, but a coming of midlife crisis, we'll call it. If you look at the back of the book, the classification, it says that it's adventure, natural history, and Canada. Those are the subjects. And there is plenty of adventure in it, but I wasn't trying to write it as a writer of an adventure story, but I was trying to work in the tradition of literary travel writing. And I mean, readers will be the judge of how well I do the literary part, but it's meant to be more of a portrayal of a place, um, than of my heroic exploits or something like that. I'm not particularly heroic, as you'll see if you read the book. So I want to look now at the questions that Boulder Books was kind enough to send my way. And I'll try to get through these quickly because I want to keep this fairly compact and then do a bit of a reading for you at the end. So first, do you remember your first time skiing? And what is it about skiing that you love most? I do remember my first time skiing. My first time downhill skiing was when I was 5 years old at a local ski hill. And I actually tell the story in the book. My dad left me at the bottom of the bunny slope and told me how to carry my skis over my shoulder. And rather than buying me a ticket, he said, walk up the slope and ski back down, and I'll come back and check on you in a few hours and see how you're doing. By the time he finally caught up to me, I had hoofed my way halfway up the mountain, and then we skied back down together, and that was my first skiing experience. About 5 years later, when I was 10, I started cross-country skiing, which is, of course, much more important as far as this book is concerned. And what is it about skiing that you love most? So I'll talk about cross-country skiing. What I love about cross-country skiing is the fact that you can, if you live in a northern climate, as I do, it's something that you can do anywhere. It's very simple. You just grab your skis and clip them on and go off into the woods. And then once you get into the woods, it's quiet and it's meditative and it's mixed, because there's the struggle of climbing uphill. There's flat terrain. And then, of course, there's the exhilaration of coasting downhill. How did you first come up with the idea of skiing across Canada alone? Well, the alone part, I think, is pretty simple to explain. Anyone will find that out if you try to ask your friends to join you on a journey, uh, living outdoors for 4 months in places where North Dakota is considered a southern latitude. The idea of spending winter outside skiing across Canada came to me at the time that I hatched the idea. I was living in Italy, actually, and I'm in Italy right now. Uh, I'm not Italian, as you can hear. I'm from New Hampshire, but I had lived here for about a decade. My wife is Italian, and I had this sort of diffuse sense of nostalgia, of homesickness for, on the one hand, open spaces, and on the other, winter, two things that are lacking in most parts of Italy. And this idea was just sort of a very practical way of addressing both of those needs, for lack of a better word. The next question, how long did you spend planning this trip? I spent about 14 months, really, planning it seriously. The idea was a bit older than that. And did you know when you set out that you would want to write a book about the experience? I did. I did. I'd long wanted to write, and this was, I thought it might be kind of a launch pad. And since after the expedition, I began writing full time for magazines, so that's what I do. Um, what all did you have to leave behind to go on this journey? A great deal, most notably my marriage. This was kind of a huge fracture. Also, a steady job, Italy. So those would be, I guess, the three big things. And that's again one of the major themes of the book. So I won't get too far into that. Did you have any moments during your adventure where you thought you were about to die? This is the classic question, of course. I guess there are two episodes that that fit that. The first one was in a few days of skiing in the northern reaches of the prairie in northwestern Alberta, and it was just a matter of cold. It was about 37 degrees below zero centigrade, so I think 35 or so Fahrenheit, and really windy and exposed. And one of the mornings in particular, getting up and getting out into that in deep, fluffy snow, I just kept collapsing over and over again as my whole body went sort of beyond numbness. Well, not really beyond numbness because I could still feel pain. It was like this intense, it was like thousands of daggers were being stabbed into, all of my extremities. And I just kept falling over and over. And I remember thinking one of these times, if I fall often enough, I'm not going to be able to get back up. And then the other one was in later in the winter in northern Saskatchewan in February. I was on a large lake, and there was this really, really, almost unimaginably thick whiteout, swirling snow, high wind, quite cold, and I was completely disoriented. My back trail was being obliterated as soon as I'd laid it. And I just kind of freaked out. And in the middle of this, I was skiing along. My skis started getting heavier, and my poles, each time I lifted them, got heavier and heavier. And it was only a matter of time before I realized that the reason for that was that there was slush coming up from under the snow, and of course, as soon as it hit the air, it would freeze, and then my ski would go down, pick up more liquid, freeze again, and so my skis kept getting heavier and heavier, and my poles as well, as ice built up on the baskets. And at a certain point, I just, in a fit of frustration, I just whacked the two poles together to try to free them of ice. And one of the poles just split in half. And at the same time, something inside me snapped, and I freaked out. And I started swearing, and basically was on this tirade for, several minutes until I was just, tears streaming down my face until I was absolutely exhausted. And then at that pit of exhaustion, this kind of clarity and reason came back, and this sort of inner resourcefulness. And I was able to just rationally power my way forward, leapfrogging, about 10 feet at a time with my compass, and eventually got to the other side of the lake. But I won't tell you any more than that because it's in the book. Were you completely alone during your trip, or did you encounter others on similar journeys? I didn't meet anyone else on any kind of journey, but I did have a lot of encounters with very nice people. Doing something that's unusual in places that are sparsely populated tends to become a conversation starter. And so it was very common that I would be invited into people's homes. And lots of these encounters are in the book. That's kind of, I think, what gives the book its warmth and its human quality, I hope. Do you feel that your journey prepared you for the isolation during the pandemic? The honest answer to that question is no, because I think to set off on this kind of journey to begin with, you have to be kind of a hermit. I had become, in the years leading up to the journey in Italy, for reasons again that I deal with in the book, a hermit to the point of, becoming a misanthrope as well, I think, almost. And so, if anything, the experiences that are described in the book were kind of an antidote to that, and I came to value the importance of human relationships and friendship and um, other kinds of human interaction. And again, that's one of the big themes of the book. So anyway, I had the psychological resources and for dealing with the pandemic, and I work, from home, so it wasn't even much of a change to my daily routine. I want to read a passage from um, about a third of the way through the book. It's set in northeastern British Columbia, and it's in a chapter called Great Divide. The Prince George coach depot was bedlam. The woman at the ticket counter spoke with a marked southern accent. She was from Georgia. The effect lent something absurd to the grim northern setting. Everyone found her agreeable, even though she was consistently doling out the kind of news that ruined your day. If you're lucky, your luggage might make it tomorrow, or the westbound bus is stuck in a blizzard between here and Edmonton. A young woman ahead of me in line asked for a ticket to Fort St. John. "What's your name, dear?" said the sunny Georgia peach. "Greenwood," said the other woman. "Are y'all kin to Lee?" "Excuse me?" "I said, are y'all kin to Lee?" "You asked me that same thing last time," said the young woman, who was amused. "Well, that's just who I think of when I hear the name Greenwood." "I don't know who he is. I'll have to Google him." "What?" said Georgia. "You don't know Lee Greenwood? He's real famous. Oh, what's that song he sings?" She looked at the ceiling and rattled her fingertips on the countertop. Then the memory clicked and she shouted, "God bless the USA!" and beamed. Every head in the station turned. The traveling woman stared blankly back at Georgia. "I wouldn't know," she said. "I'm Canadian through and through." The crowded bus rolled north over the Great Divide, whose greatness is understated in the northern Canadian Rockies. We went through Bear Lake and Mackenzie, where we turned around and went back to the highway to resume our journey northeastward. I had requested a flag stop at Azuzeta Lake in the middle of Pine Pass, the northernmost and lowest road pass over the Rockies. The bus slowed down and all the passengers looked around the cabin, wondering why. I walked down the aisle, trying not to blush at all the stares. The driver climbed out in shirt sleeves and helped me take my things from the hold. She stood for a second, shivering and looking at the heap of gear. "Are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into?" she said. "I'm already into it," I said. The bus drove off and I spent the next few minutes putting more clothes on. Skiing again, things did not get off to a good start. It was strange to think that only the day before I had been with Elena. She could very well be back in Italy by now, strolling with our dog Beowulf under budding linden trees where crocuses pushed through the soil. Our present realities seemed unbridgeably far apart, yet it was not hard to imagine her 24 hours earlier making me laugh as she quipped with Voltairean mordancy about the obvious pathology of my compulsion to immerse myself in so hostile an environment. Couldn't I just be content to know it existed? It seemed now, as the wind and the past ripped the tears off my cheeks and sent them flying among snowflakes, that she might be right. Okay, thank you. Thank you to Boulder Books, and thank you for all of you for listening. I hope you liked that little bit there, and maybe you'll think about buying the book as we get into winter here. Again, the title is This Land of Snow, A Journey Across the North in Winter, and it's published by Mountaineers Books, and Boulder Books does carry it. So think about buying it. Thank you.